This topological map of the Western Cape's Helderberg district identifies Pine Acres, a community where demographic data shows families have lived on the same farm for 3 generations. This continuity created a resilient social fabric, yet one currently strained by a systemic alcohol crisis. This high rate of addiction is linked to historical labor practices in the agricultural sector that contributed to long-term cycles of dependency. Traditional clinical models fail here by isolating the medical event of addiction from the patient's socioeconomic environment. Without addressing the living conditions the individual returns to, long-term reintegration into the workforce remains difficult to achieve. The crisis in Pine Acres is a symptom of a recovery capital deficit. The community lacks secure housing, basic vocational skills, and stable support networks, which are absolutely required to sustain long-term health. Breaking this cycle requires treating community addiction as a measurable economic deficit. The intervention moves away from a standard medical plan toward a strategy that integrates social recovery with capital investment. The Pine Acres Partnership operates on a specific economic model. Productivity, or P, is a function of recovery capital, agricultural infrastructure, and labor. P represents the net productivity and the net present value of the entire farm enterprise. RC is recovery capital. This encompasses systemic wellness coaching and the development of social support networks within the community. AI stands for agricultural infrastructure, which includes land access, farming equipment, and worker housing. And L is labor participation, the active, sober workforce that becomes available once the first 2 variables are addressed. These variables represent specific government funding streams. The goal of the partnership is to synthesize these siloed public resources into a single coordinated capital stack. To build recovery capital, UACT focuses on securing nonprofit organization transfer funding from the Western Cape Department of Social Development. The partnership targets the department's $128 million budget, specifically allocated for substance abuse prevention and rehabilitation. The strategy utilizes the recovery-oriented system of care model. This moves beyond clinical beds to promote wellness at the individual, family, and organizational levels within the farm itself. Phase 1 funding covers the certification of 15 local community members as peer recovery coaches and systemic wellness facilitators. This local coaching network must integrate with the Provincial Social Work Integrated Management System, or SWIMS. UACT's digital ecosystem tracks recovery progress and feeds this data into SWIMS. This provides the transparency and outcomes reporting necessary to secure recurring government support. By solving for recovery capital, the partnership establishes a localized support system where trained residents manage their own community's wellness and data validation. To solve for agricultural infrastructure, Evidently Fresh manages primary production and land stewardship. The primary funding source is the Comprehensive Agricultural Support Program. This grant provides post-settlement support to land reform beneficiaries and emerging farmers. The largest portion of CASP spending is allocated to on-farm and off-farm infrastructure, which improves both the living conditions of the community and the farm's overall capacity. The partnership aligns its application with the $2 million earmarked in the 2026-2027 budget for solar PV installations on agri-worker housing. It also facilitates access to the MAFISA pillar, which provides microfinance for production credit and seasonal liquidity. Eligibility for CASP requires proof of land rights, typically through a title deed or a lease agreement of at least 5 years for food security projects. Funding these physical improvements stabilizes the community's living environment, providing the necessary foundation for sustained agricultural output. With the community and primary infrastructure stabilized in Phase 1, the partnership can move into Phase 2, structural development and industrial scaling. This phase targets large-scale capital through the IDC Agri-Industrial Fund, a partnership between the IDC and the Department of Agriculture. The objective is a $5.5 million agro-processing facility on-site, featuring wash plants, grading lines, and cold storage. The IDC process requires a sound commercial model and a minimum 35% equity contribution for expansion projects. This facility allows the labor force to move from primary labor to higher-skilled roles in agro-processing, increasing the economic value generated by the community. Phase 2 marks the point where the social stability of the workforce supports industrialized, commercially viable production. FM Consulting serves as the governance engine, coordinating these regulated financial flows and ensuring the partnership meets state requirements. Success in securing South African government funding depends on meeting specific transformation and empowerment metrics. FM Consulting's leadership team aligns with priority categories for CASP and the IDC, maximizing the BBBBEE scoring necessary for application approval. They also manage regulatory risks, such as ensuring strict POPIA compliance when handling sensitive health data from the recovery programs. Operational timing is vital. Western Cape funding windows are strictly defined, typically opening between March and August for the following year. Centralized governance prevents these grants from remaining in isolated silos, instead synchronizing them into a functional capital stack. The individual funding streams from the DSD, CASP, and the IDC converge to complete the primary economic equation. This creates a productivity loop where growth and human capital directly supports agricultural output. Research indicates that for every R1 invested in substance abuse prevention and recovery, communities realize a manifold return in social stability and economic output. Reducing the costs associated with addiction, such as absenteeism and healthcare expenses, directly increases the net present value of the farm enterprise. In this model, the farm's success is tied to the community's recovery. When the enterprise invests in the well-being of its residents, it secures its own future labor force and social license to operate. This strategy utilizes existing government frameworks to address rural poverty and addiction through a coordinated capital stack that integrates social recovery with commercial growth.